As a young man of 19 when you arrived here, what was life like in Australia?
Prison. If I could find £100, I would walk to Brisbane to get to the boat to go back home. And you can't compare living in cities, living in a big town, and then come in the bush and see nothing. But I love the place, and I'm still here. And I came in Mareeba, 1950, and I ended up in, they used to call Shandy Creek Road, on the bottom of it. That's where my relation had the tobacco farm. And I started crowd back in 1951 with Philip DeFlees. Then I grew 1 year with Tom Howe in Bill 1. And then I went to Armoured Farm, 1954. And I started there, and then the first pick machine come in Mareeba, which I don't think they got any photos of that. But we used to string, and there were girls stringing on top. And tobacco, I've been in tobacco ever since. I retired from tobacco in 1996.
Well, my greatest achievement as a tobacco farmer, I managed to buy my own place, and I grew my 4 daughters. I had 4 daughters, which I educated them of tobacco farm, and I went and that's where it was my success. I reckon achievement on tobacco for me, it gave me life, and it gave me a belonging to a place where I worked and have my own place and involved with the communities.
When I was a young girl, I used to have to help my parents. Was it in the seed beds, planting, covering the leaves, the plants, then pulling off the paper, helping to go and do suckers and topping, and of course stringing. We used to be there from as soon as the stretchers come home of tobacco till it was finished at night. Sometimes it was 8, 9 o'clock. And the next day I used to have to go to school. Then I got married. And from then onwards we used to have so many men in the paddock, and we used to have to cook for them, wash, and even iron their good clothes plenty of times. And then you had your children, and you used to have to go under the shed to string or pull out barns, and then later on grade, and all your household duties, and kids at school, and whatever had to be done, a wife's job on the farm.
My father was one of the original farmers who started farming in 1930. He bought a block in Paddy's Green for £300 in those days. It was a 125 acre block. My mother came from Italy in 1940. And I recall the early years when I was a young child. My father, all the work was done using horses. And then I recall when my father first bought a tractor, it was a farm all, and how the whole method of farming changed and made life a little easier to what it used to be when we had the horses. It was very difficult being dry farming. Life was very hard because the whole time you depended on the weather conditions, but at least in those days there seemed to be, compared to today, there seemed to be, you could predict the seasons a lot easier. It was very intensive farming, having to do everything by hand.
I was born on tobacco farm during the war years, and my mum worked really, really hard. And I think a lot of people forget how hard the women worked on tobacco farms. They did all the washing and cooking and strung up and did the paddock work and everything. I can remember my mum with two of us in the field and a baby in a box, in a kerosene box, and she was chipping while us two little ones looked after the baby. And I remember wearing flower bag pants. My knickers had Simpson Stuff raisin flower stamped on the back of them. Of course, I wasn't the only one. I didn't like it much when I was at school. I never played leapfrog.
Back in the 1930s, tobacco was a hit and miss crop. There was probably 4,000 farmers growing tobacco in the 30s. In 1933, about 3,000 went bankrupt. So it was very hard. Tobacco was hard right up till probably the late 60s, when a bit of mechanisation came in, a bit of stability in the industry to stabilisation, and which gave farmers a lot more confidence to spend money on the industry.
The tobacco industry meant everything because, while we had a grazing industry at our doorstep and cattle sales in Mareeba, we had a meat works, we had a sawmill. The tobacco industry just added that on top, made the area grow far greater and far faster than would have been the case otherwise.